Hello, beautifuls. Today we are going to have such a good conversation about sex, intimacy, and weave this all into thyroid issues, chronic symptoms, and get some great tips on how we can be more intimate with ourselves as well as our partners and the other people in our lives. So I am really excited to welcome on today's guest, Miss Leah Gastler. So Leah is such an interesting woman. Last time Leah was on with me, probably about 6 to 8 months ago, she was actually a confidence coach. But now she has shifted her message, and I watch her all the time on Instagram, and I'm like, girl, you are powerful, and her messages are beautiful. So I reached out to her and I was like, can we please do an updated podcast and talk about this new sexual message that you're putting out? Because it is still so taboo for us to talk about these things. It's getting better. It's getting better. But, especially here in the thyroid community, I don't feel like this is a message that we discuss a lot. And it's one of the many pieces of the journey that is really important. So let's see. We're just waiting for her to hop on. She'll be here soon. So let me do a quick intro on Leah. So Leah, like I said, super interesting background, right? Leah is, like I said, she's currently a sex and intimacy coach who specializes in helping women in committed relationships create life-changing sex and transcendental intimacy. Who doesn't want that? With the person that they love. She works primarily one-on-one with her clients using a holistic approach that blends mindset, somatic, and energetic work to guide her clients to reconnect to the vibrancy of their own sensuality and sexuality as a portal to deep pleasure and freedom that transforms and vitalizes their experience of life. And this is all very much connected. And I love that she puts all of this together because it's not like she's just here talking about sex, like the actual sexual act. There's so much personal liberation in just your beauty and who you are as a being that she weaves everything in together. So it's her personal mission to help women reconnect to the full spectrum of their human power and human experience through the liberation of their sexual energy, sex, and sex expression so they can share uninhibited, soulful love with their partner. Yeah, sign me up, right? Who doesn't want that? Okay, so I'm going to find her. Here she goes. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I don't know if you heard it, but I just did your full intro. So
I didn't hear it.
Oh,
Dang, it just invited me. How did I miss it?
I'm sorry. Okay, you want to go out and redo it?
No. No, it's good.
I'm kidding. It's all good. Yeah, no, I just absolutely was saying how when you first came on, we were talking all about confidence.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that's the mission or that's the message that you were filling into for yourself as you were going through your spiritual journey and finding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyone that's listening to this live or on the replay, you can go back to Thursday Thyroid Talks and find our entire episode together on confidence. It was so good.
It was a good episode.
Oh, good, girl. You know how to bring it. So, but over the past, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah.
You've transitioned. One second. I need to plug my phone and I forgot to plug my phone in. Oh, of course I drop it. Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties. The battery dies. Okay. Okay, sorry. So I was saying, yeah, I've watched you transition to the sex and intimacy coach, and I read your posts and I'm just like, like, damn, it just lands, you
That's a
know,
good
every single
reaction.
one.
I'm glad.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I'm like, that is potent, you know? And like the way you say things, like you put this different perspective on sensuality, sexuality, loving yourself, being intimate with your partner, that is just such a beautiful, non-gross, non-creepy like twist and vibe. You know, you have your like love in it, and it's just so awesome. So yeah, let's dive into you. So share a little bit about how you transition from confidence into sexuality.
Sure. Yeah. So that transition was really personal for me because the deeper that I went into confidence, and in confidence, I was talking a lot about self-expression and like unlocking the truth of who we are and like how we get to be our most powerful selves in the world. For me, I was called to like look deeper and deeper into sexuality specifically. Like, and at the time it wasn't even sexuality, it was sexual energy and like this part of ourselves, because sexual energy is something that our society kind of represses, and we have this really, really convoluted relationship with it where it's expected of us and we want it really bad, but we suppress it and we hide it and we like feel really icky about it. And like it's a really conflicted relationship that we have with sexuality, sexual energy, being sexual beings, and like how we are able to like integrate the fullness of our self-expression, which we hide a lot in the way that we hide ourselves in sexuality. Like the way that our lack of confidence shows up a lot in sexuality. So for me, like when I was going deeper and deeper into unlocking confidence in terms of self-expression, the deeper I went, the more I got into like the shadows of sexuality and sexual self-expression, because that's where we tend to hide a lot of stuff and repress a lot of our darkness, you know, a lot of the darkness. Yeah. And I'm always about like how the darkness, embracing the depths of like our darkness or our shadow sides or our like the rebellious bad girl sides, which we talked about a lot in our last call too, how much that allows us to be our best, biggest, most powerful, most light filled selves, if you will, with that metaphor there. Because we can't experience the fullness of our human power unless we get to the depths of the darkness that we try to hide, the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at and don't want to see. And yeah, so for me, that's why I started going deeper and deeper into the sexuality, because that's where my unlocking was. And I found just like so much, like such a wealth of creativity, of self-expression there, of power there, and of like this feeling of vitality in life. And that is what I find so important about sexual energy, is that it holds life-giving vitality, like a feeling of vitality that a lot of us in our society are missing because of the way that we suppress ourselves there, and the way that we're like taught to keep a lid on everything in our sexuality and how we express ourselves sexually.
That's so true. And for me personally, I really resonated because I was the little daughter, like sister to two older brothers. And so I was always around the boys and did what the boys did. So as a little girl and going into my teenage years, I really identified with being a tomboy. And then I realized as I got older, but I have this girl side to me that I need to explore. It was like this calling. And I've always like explored that as an adult, but recently, like you're saying, I felt this deeper unlocking for myself And I love that you're using the word sexuality, because I never thought about connecting the two, because in my mind, I was using the word
Yeah.
femininity or feminine power, but my feminine power is my sexual power. It is my sexuality.
Yeah.
And so I've realized that the more I go into my beauty and taking care of my actual physical body by nails or hair or jewelry or whatever expression that my body and I feel like I need,
Mm-hmm.
it enhances like that intimacy that I can have with the people in my life, because I feel more confident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is all so intertwined and
It
gorgeous.
really is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool how you address it from a different, like, you entered into sexual, or into like the world of sexual energy from a feminine, like a feminine energy perspective. It's fascinating because sexual energy is like that, like it is unique to us, and it brings out like this essence of who we naturally are. And so when we start to unlock it, like, we have the glow up, so to speak, you know, like,
Yes, we do.
and it's
People
so
see,
personal.
thank you. And they see, and I have, and it's, thank you for saying that, because for me, I literally have had friends text me. They just go through my stories or something randomly one day, and I've gotten random texts from my male friends that are like, I don't know what you have been doing, but you look fabulous. And I was like, I've done nothing different in the past 25 years they've known me, except for what we were just saying. They see my glow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is like, everyone says like, oh, how do you get that glow? And it really is pouring and nurturing into yourself in whatever way. Like you said, your shadows are like, whatever you feel is dark and hiding, like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been exploring, is those shadows of like, what have I always avoided? What do I feel being, what am I drawn to? What am I called to? So, all right, I'm going to shut up and just let you go.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's like integrating all of the sides of yourself and not feeling like you're, again, like you're repressing a piece of yourself, or at war with a piece of yourself, or trying to like get rid of something about you, you know? And that like integration of all of who you are is creates that glow up and that sense of vitality and that sense of, I can be everything that I'm here to be, and
Yeah.
feel powerful doing it.
So there may be women that are listening to this that really feel down on themselves. They don't feel beautiful because whatever is going on with their health, they may have put, 10, 20, 30 plus pounds on, and they feel very just, insecure over the weight, or they're struggling with thinning hair, or, just a piece of that, piece of them, like you're saying, that feels broken. Um, because of the health issues. And I say this from my own experience, because I first started losing my hair. That was the first thing to go, and our hair really truly is our crown.
Mm-hmm.
And we really, can step into our beauty through our hair if we want to. And I know a lot of women resonate with that and feel unpretty, because and unconfident, because they just simply start having their hair thin. So let's try to like speak from that perspective of like, how can they still obtain this and reach their connection with themselves, even if they're really not feeling that well.
Yeah. So the thing that I think is so important to understand is that we we have like a image or a understanding of sexuality, what it means to be sexy, what it means to look sexy. That's ingrained in us from everything that, of course, society tells us, all of the media, and also our memories of how we used to feel sexy, or how we have felt sexy, or when we, quote unquote, were sexy, so to speak. And we really have to understand that sexual energy is a part of our energetic system that's always there. It's really always there. And we are more prone to feel it when we have in our head what the image is of sexy that we believe is sexy. So for me, feeling into my sexual energy has become a daily practice. And I can feel sexual energy when I'm tired, when I'm exhausted, when I'm grumpy and needy, being a bratty little bitch, and also when I'm feeling like on top of the world. And that sexual energy gets to take on it gets to take on whatever mood or way of being that you're in. It's still there. And once we begin to kind of understand that the sexual energy is always there, literally running through your body, you can connect with it and nurture it and begin to grow it and identify it more for yourself. So that's the first thing, is really knowing that even when like you're feeling unpretty or you're feeling unwell, your sexual energy is still there. And it never leaves you. It's still there. And I think for a lot of women, we really have to reclaim our own sexuality, because we think of our sexuality as something that we give to our partner to meet their needs or serve them or please them. But it really is ours to claim, and it's part of us. It's part of our energetic system, and it's part of our own nourishment and our own way of being and our own expression in the world. And that's a super important, like, foundational piece to understand. It's just a reframe of what sexuality is, or sexual energy is.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah. That felt comforting for me just to even hear. And I honestly wish, when I was in that mindset of I'm losing my hair, I'm so ugly, you know, and beating myself up, and all of the things that we go through when we're battling chronic symptoms and, you know, bloating and all the things that make us just feel undesirable to our partner and to ourselves, is always still there. And that you can reclaim it and reframe it, but how? You know, how can you twist it? So how can you look at this as like, I'm still me and I'm still beautiful and I'm still going to be able to find that side of me regardless of how XYZ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we're trying to reconnect with the sexual energy, like, first of all, it helps to know, like, where this sexual energy resides in my body, you know? And a lot of times when we think about, like, where we feel most sexy, we're either stuck in our heads about, like, what we think, again, sexy looks like, or what, or like what we're supposed to be doing with being sexy, you know? Or we're thinking about, like, where sexy, like, where we, like, genitalia, right? So, like, in terms of like I work a lot with energy, visualizing the chakra system. And that's just the system that is most visual for me to understand it, because I think visually, and it helps me to identify, like, where in my body I feel certain things. So I just want to say this, like, in terms of connecting with your sexual energy, I'm gonna just stand up, but I don't know if you can. So your sexual energy, like, lives in your second chakra, which is, this is my belly button, right here, like 2 inches below your belly button. Okay. And that's where, like, yes, sex happens at the genitalia, right? But that's where sexual energy blooms into something that's more expansive and more life-giving than just a primal instinctual penetration, the end, right? So for me, like, in terms of reconnecting with sexual energy, I always visualize from that space. And for women, like, it's your womb space, right? It's literally where life is formed in your body. It's literally the creative center of your body. And
our 3D blueprinter.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's literally creates something out of seemingly nothing. Mm-hmm. And this is if you ever needed an illustration of energy growing and expanding, that's it, right? Like that's it. So for me, always reconnecting to that space. So and when I'm coaching my clients, I always coach my clients to create a pleasure practice. And this sounds like that might sound like of course, when I first heard the idea of pleasure practice, I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna like masturbate every day or whatever. I really hope this doesn't get censored on Instagram. But, but no, it's really about reconnecting with what feels good to you, and not even in a sexual way. And that's really the beauty of accessing the sexual energy, is that you can access feeling good when you don't feel sexy. It just takes on a radically different form. It takes on the form of nourishment, of nurturing, of giving yourself what you need, and honoring yourself and loving yourself and like cherishing the way that your body shows up for you. And so
sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
This live just got way more interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Leah brings it. She's
we
fun.
on this pleasure practice.
All right. I'm always like, okay, pleasure practice.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. I like pleasure practice. Okay. So okay, so I can understand what you're saying, because for me, I guess you could say a non-sexual pleasure practice would be getting a 90-minute massage. Exactly. It feels so good and nourishing, and it's like pouring love into myself through someone else's hands.
Exactly. And the thing is, because for people who are dealing with chronic illness, or seeing that change that you've dealt with, of knowing yourself as feeling and looking one way to feeling and looking completely differently, like we have to go the extra mile to give ourselves permission to feel pleasure in that kind of state. Like you have to go the extra mile to remember to pour love into yourself, like you said, because that's when we need it more. And we need to find those ways that we really feel nourishment from ourselves, and we're really giving ourselves permission to feel pleasure.
Yeah.
Women struggle with that across the board, period.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself permission to feel pleasure.
Yeah. In all areas, not just sexually.
Right.
In all areas.
Exactly.
They neglect themselves, especially mothers, and it's hard because you have so many people depending on you, and you're pulled in a million different directions, and I get it. I, have 2 kids.
Yeah.
But also, we're not taught that you need to please yourself in all ways. If that means getting your hair done, or sure, if that means masturbating, or if that means going in, there's so many ways. I mean, shopping, that's a way of feeling good and pleasing yourself.
Exactly. Which is why when I speak about a pleasure practice, it's literally like, for me, it's more of a sensual experience, because I'm reconnecting to my body, I'm reconnecting to my energy, I'm reconnecting for me to spirit, to source. I'm pouring into myself the nourishment that I need to feel good in my day. That's the basis of pleasure, is getting yourself to the point where you're receptive of all the good that life is currently giving you. And like that's the only way you can have great sex in the first place, is if you're fundamentally receptive to the good that life is trying to give to you, to feeling good,
being open and receptive to all things.
Yes. And so that being said, even when we're especially when we're feeling down on ourselves, when we're not feeling good, when we wake up feeling like I can't even like look at you in the mirror, like, which we all have those days, some more than others, and some seasons in our lives harder than others. But especially in those times, we need to sit with ourselves and give ourselves what we need, and pour love into ourselves, and find the ways that bring our literal physical body pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you for saying literal physical, because this whole term, like embodiment, right? This has been the big term that I've rolled around in my brain like a bazillion times. Like everyone's talking about embodiment. Like, what does this mean? And so I realized it was funny because on Nicole's call yesterday that we were both on, it was like it finally clicked. I've heard it a bazillion times. But I was like, for me, embodiment is truly physical things, physical anything that feels good. So whether it's a hug, a kiss, a head rub, a massage, nails, jewelry, flowers, you know, all of the physical, and of course sex is involved in that, and just pleasure, external pleasure that like has contact with me. You know, when I say flowers, because I will just shove my face in a bouquet of flowers and I'm like, I love you. Like, it feels so good. I love big old roses in my face. And I smell them and they're soft and velvety. And so I'm like, this is embodiment, you know? Thank you. Yes. Deep breathing, meditation, like so many ways to embrace everything you're talking about in a non-sexual way.
Exactly.
That elevates you, and when you are feeling bad, it can actually lift you out of it.
At least any little shift out of it is a shift towards your pleasure, towards feeling better. And so like when you're feeling at the lowest of the low, like you're not trying to get to like let's like have wild, crazy, passionate sex right now, you know what I mean? You're trying to just move yourself from feeling like complete doo-doo about yourself to feeling at peace with yourself, or at least feeling like I'm on the path to being at peace with myself.
So how do we communicate this to a partner that is coming at us and we don't feel good and we're like, I love you, but I just am not in the mood for that right now? How can we still have intimacy with our partners even in a moment of like, I feel like shit?
And that's where, you know, hopefully you have a partner who is loving and caring of you and knows what everything that you're dealing with and going through. And we can create ways of being intimate with people that don't necessarily even involve us like having sex with them. And that just takes a lot of intentionality, and it takes some understanding of, for me, intimacy energetics, presence, what it's like to be energetically connected with your partner. And that, I feel like most of us can remember a time when we feel energetically present with our partner, and it's deeply satisfying and powerful, and it doesn't even necessarily involve sex.
Right. And it usually does not involve Netflix. I heard a thing the other day of like, if the only intimacy you have with your partner is sitting and watching Netflix, you're in trouble. I was like, damn, you know, that hit a lot of people right there. It's so true, you know, like what he said, a great meal, long walk, phone conversation with someone who makes you smile. Like you, just that, like you both are saying, that deep connection.
And I would say,
I feel like when you build that connection and you build that trust, for women especially, it's a respect factor too. Like a woman will look at her man, if he has the capability of saying, I understand you don't feel good right now, I honor and I respect that, and I'm sorry, but I'm still here from you. What else can we do? What would make you happy right now? That level of love, care, and respect back will honor, just like deepen her love in return, so that when she is feeling better, you probably will get a little, you know, something.
Absolutely. And that's a reflection of intimacy work that's built between two people like that. You know, it's like it becomes a partnership of understanding and receiving and being receptive to each other's needs. That's not a service-based transaction. And for a lot of women, we already feel like sex is a service type of interaction where we have like a goal in mind, you know, like either our orgasm or their orgasm is the goal, and we're like, we need to cross this thing off the to-do list so we can be on with our next thing.
Yep, it's like just one more chore, and not only is it one more chore, but it's the chore at the end of the day when you're most hurting.
Yeah.
That the one you want to do the least because you're most fatigued. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so just like reframing what sexy and sexuality feels like to you in your body, there's a reframe of what your sex life or your intimacy life can look like with your partner. And for I find for a lot of people, it's really powerful to just like remove yourself from the goal, from any sort of goal of like orgasm being being like a qualifier of what makes your sex, like a sex session or something, like successful or like fruitful. Because in terms of creating intimacy with your partner, there's so much to be explored in just presence and energy that doesn't even necessarily even require, like, I don't know if I can say these words on live, but even require like penetration, right? Like
I think you can say it.
Yeah, there's so much that you can explore there in terms of having a intimacy date or a sexy date with your partner that can be deeply satisfying and like deeply bonding. And so taking yourself out of the mindset of, I need to meet his needs, I need to serve him or satisfy him or her, is essential because you cannot be in your body and receiving pleasure in your own body if you're over there thinking that you need to meet someone else's needs. It just, you can't have it both ways. So there's, yeah,
it's a forced transaction, and how miserable does that sound and feel?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like of course we want to satisfy our partners and like meet their needs, right? But and knowing the programming that women have running through their minds, there's a shift where we need to come back to our own bodies, remember what it's like to receive our own pleasure, learn how to receive our own pleasure, which is what, like I was talking about, having like a pleasure practice in the morning is all about, like learning how to receive, how to let in, how to allow yourself to receive pleasure. And then from there, when you know how to receive pleasure, giving pleasure is pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. That's so
it becomes a so it becomes a mutual interaction instead of a transactional service-based thing where you're just trying to get one or the other off.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I guess it all really just depends on your partner and the kind of person they are, and whether or not they're selfish or, you know, they're understanding and open. And because as you were saying all of that, and I'm like, okay, so how can we make this non-transactional and just pleasurable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and soothing and like connecting? And if it is the end of the day and everyone's all tired, you know, it's like, you could, one of the things I used to do that one of my favorite things to do in a relationship is just sit on the couch and talk
Mm-hmm.
and rub each other's feet.
Yeah.
Give me your foot, I'll give you yours, and let's just rub each other's feet and just talk. You know, what was that cool podcast you heard today? You know, what was just little things like that. You got to get creative and just find ways to make a connection without it feeling like a chore.
Exactly. And I wrote a post about this yesterday, actually, that I find it really important if you do struggle with like your energy bandwidth and everything that you're trying to do every day, you know, if you're a mom or professional or whatever, you know, dealing with life, and you find that sex always ends up on the last thing on the to-do list every day, and your partner wants it from you when you're tired and feeling grumpy and like all the things. It's the worst feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the worst, because then not only are you already tired and grumpy and not feeling sexy, then you get to feel guilty on top of it for like not being in the mood again.
Right. So you feel guilty, and then sometimes you'll do it out of pure obligation and then have resentment.
Exactly. And it becomes just, that's what it becomes, resentment.
Yeah.
So I really recommend, and people don't like this, but I really recommend making it like a date, like creating it in your schedule, however many times a week it makes sense to you and is feasible to do so, setting aside time to be intimate with each other. And it sounds, people have a lot of resistance to that at first, like I said, but when you are already dealing with all of the stuff that's on your plate and you want your sex life to improve, you've got to show it that you're prioritizing it with the energy that you want to like save up to give it, like expecting that it's just going to improve and like you're just still going to wait for it to be the last thing at the end of the day, or like the first thing in the morning spontaneously before you do all of the other, before you like actually get to the stuff that's running through your head as a to-do list. Like it's never just going to find its time to like improve if you don't create the space for it to improve.
I love that, because you made me realize like, well, why wouldn't we put this in our calendar? We put everything else in our calendar. I'm like, hey, this is my block for meditation time. This is my block for me time. This is my workout block, like, why can't I have, this is my sexual intimate time with my partner? Like, it's the most important thing, besides for myself and all my self-care practices, that should be the most important thing on your list. If you cherish that person and you really want to give them your presence and nurture your relationship and actually hang on to this person and make things work, and so I don't look at my daily routine of journaling and meditation as like a chore. So why would I look at time with my partner as a chore?
Exactly. And a lot of times the reason we build up so much resentment is because it never fits in with all the things that we have running through our mind about like what we should be doing at this moment, or our lack of energy.
That's true. And so why doesn't it fit in?
Exactly.
Could. Why not?
It could.
Yeah.
It could and it should. And
it should.
Yeah. And for me, like, I can't, like, a relationship for me, like, the sex is like, it is the mutual meditation. Like, I meditate, I do my meditation, my pleasure practice every morning. That's my time with myself. In a partnership, a relationship, for me, sex is that as the partnership. Like, it is the cornerstone of that, like, communion with each other, where we build the intimacy, where we give our energy to each other, and where we share our love with each other. And it's essential. And like I say, share our love with each other. It's like that doesn't even apply even if you're in a like relationship with somebody who you don't like say I love you to. It's still love energy that you're sharing with each other, and it's still your time to give your energy to each other and to like be connected like that. So
I've always called it the glue.
Yeah.
It's the sticky glue. It's the tacky. It is, for me, I look at it, when I'm in a relationship, I look at it as it is the foundation of everything else that we build.
Exactly.
Like that intimacy. And like we were saying earlier, it might not even really need to be like the outcome.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be focused on the outcome. Just like you keep saying, time together, being present.
Yes, exactly.
Honor, like enjoying, absorbing, being. And, because like, I'm sure you agree with me wholeheartedly, but because when we join together like that, it's so much more than just a physical moment. Yeah. Like you were saying, it's your meditation. It is well, when we're meditating, it's an energetic thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's a, like you said, you focus on the chakras, and that's all energy.
Yeah.
That's all frequency. That's what intimacy, that's what sex truly is a bonding of two spirits, two souls. It's an entanglement of souls.
Yes.
And I mean, everyone feels better afterwards. How many times have you had an amazing, moment with your partner, and then you're like, la da da, you're like skipping, everyone's happy, everyone's smiling, all of your stress is lighter, you feel more flirty with each other, and it's just like,
Exactly. And that's where, like, you really, really have to look at whether you're allowing yourself to, like, receive pleasure in your life, because we know consciously that sex feels good. Orgasms feel good, right? Like, feeling connected to our partner feels good. Feeling like we have a bond and an intimacy and a connection with our partner feels good. So why don't we prioritize it?
No shit.
Yeah, it really, for me, it's like, I'm like all this, like, there's lots of anti-pleasure programming going on in our heads. There's lots of, like, good girl stuff. There's lots of capitalist stuff where we're like, we need to get this done and that done and the other thing. Otherwise, we're not worthy of anything, like, we can't enjoy our lives until we have our whole to-do list done, There's, like, a lot of that stuff. But if you really look at, like, the simplicity of that, we know we feel better when we have great sex, orgasms, and connection with our partner. And if we know that, we need to make it a priority.
Okay, so there's something I need to say about orgasms and ourselves, like, for women. And because I've actually, can't believe I'm going to say this on a live and put it on my podcast, but I have to put this out there because I need to know, you guys can tell me in the comments, or you can tell me if you resonate with this. But I have noticed since I've overcome my symptoms, and I've really been working on myself and really connecting to myself and healing my traumas and getting deep and really exploring my pleasures of all kinds and connecting with my sensuality and sexuality, I've realized that, okay, right, like, my cycle really emphasizes up or down my moods, right? My sex drive is really high or really low. And I've noticed that if I don't honor that drive and have that orgasmic release, it's almost as if it gets pent up in me and I get frustrated and I'm like snippy and moody. And it's like, I need to handle that,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, like, like, we need to honor what our bodies are asking for, and I think it's like, I mean, so many of us have no idea what our cycles even are because we're so dissociated from our bodies that we're not even paying attention to, like, when our sex drive is higher or when it's lower, or, like, even when our period's coming or not. You know what I mean? Like, we're so tuned out of our bodies that we're like just ignoring them all the time, or we're feeling like we're hating them more than we're in tune with them.
Yeah.
And so, like, all of this coming back to your body and finding what feels good, there's a lot of this, like, our bodies crave things that we're not even, our conscious mind isn't, like, able to logic, and we need to honor that because that is our energy asking to be released, asking to be moved, asking to move.
Yeah.
It is our energy asking to move. And so the more that we honor that and are in tune with our bodies, the more we feel great and fulfilled in our lives, like in our day-to-day lives. So I think and I think that's a great example, especially of, like, the change that you experience in the transition of, like, starting to be more in touch and in tune with your body and the healing process.
Yeah. And and thank you for talking about the cycle too, because I want to touch on that as well. That is massive. That is
Yeah.
so, so massive for women, is being disassociated and dysregulated from just their natural cycle. Excuse me. I was on birth control for a really long time because I didn't want to get pregnant, because I was protecting myself. I didn't want to have any more kids. I was in an abusive marriage, and all these reasons. So yeah, I never knew my cycle. I didn't bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know I had an ovulation. I thought I just bled. Like, first of all, that, like, just cycle illiteracy, like, to the max.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I started learning about how birth control is just holy shit bad to us in every way, I decided, and I was sexually active and it was scary as fuck, but I decided to go off the pill, and I started tracking it on an app called Natural Cycles. And it was like this whole other side of life opened up to me that I didn't even know existed. And I don't mean just in my actual cycle. I mean, in, like you said earlier, in like, in my focus, and how I wanted to do my hair and makeup that day, and how I wanted to watch a movie that day because I was, feeling a little tired because I knew my period was coming, or I was super energized and I wanted to go for a bike ride. Or if I was feeling, I started noticing, even I was like, holy shit, every time there's a new moon, I'm ovulating. So many aha moments. And I noticed the sex drive connected to the ovulation, connected to the premenstruation. And for the first time in 20 years, I had a libido.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have been suppressing this beast for this long. Yeah. It was like, oh, who is this person? This is so fun.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I wonder how many women are actually complaining that it's like their symptoms or their chronic illness that's making them not have a libido. Or is it your fucking birth control robbing it from you?
Right. I mean, like it's, and the way that we are constantly, like, we're trying to manage our body in so many ways, like the birth control, we're trying to, and just daily, we're more focused on why we don't have the energy that we want, or why we don't have the libido, when at the bottom of it, we're so out of touch with the rhythms and cycles of our bodies that we're not even, like, we're making ourselves wrong for being tired on this day when we don't even know it's because we're about to be bleeding. It's like these things are completely natural, and we're just dissociated from our bodies and from what our bodies are asking for, and we're just making them wrong all of the time instead of being with them and present and nourishing and, like, riding the waves of the energy that we have.
Yeah, that's true. Because now that I know, I'm like, oh, I'm going to start bleeding in 3 days. This is why I'm starting to feel tired, and, my back is hurting or whatever, Instead, like you said before, I would have always just said, oh, I hate my thyroid. I blamed everything on my thyroid. And I think a lot of women that have thyroid issues, they do that too. It's just like it's that like brainwashing, or that constant, oh, it's your thyroid. You're like, but is it? Yeah.
There's so many things that are affecting us. And the only real way to, like, reconnect with what you need is to start feeling your body, start understanding what your body's asking for, start working with your body instead of against it, giving it what it wants, letting it express itself in ways that it wants, like in this, what I talked about, a pleasure practice earlier. Some days it looks completely different than others. Some days it's a lot of talking out the nonsense that's running through my head just so that I can get a clear mind. Other days it's like literally my body wants to move and express itself, and I'll put on some, like, really super slutty music and, like, just, like, do whatever, you know what I mean? And, like, I'm like, I hope nobody's, like, happens to catch me through the window with this thing. But, like, honestly, it's like my body asks for different things, different days to activate itself or to release things. Sometimes when I'm tuning into my body, I need to release something. Sometimes I need to pull in something. You know, we're constantly in this flow of from all of the things that are entering our energy field. Not to mention the birth control, the chemicals and pesticides and radiation that we're ingesting all the freaking time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
like the only truth that we have is what our body is saying to us and talking to us, and that's what we have to work with. Our co-creator in life. You know, we've got our spirit, we got our energy, we got our body here, our little vessel that we're sailing through this life with. You know.
Yep. And it loves us, and
Yeah.
and it loves us so, so much. And so when you were saying things that want to come into me, things that want to push out of me, I definitely feel that often. It's like some days, and I've noticed this on the weekends because I have time. It's like I just need to reflect for like
Yeah.
an hour, maybe even 2 hours. And I will just need to think and reflect. And as I reflect, I learn. I'm like, whoa, I have aha moments.
Yes.
I go over, just my goals, or I just reflect. Like there's so many things to always reflect on. And that's so, so healthy. Where some days I feel more energized, like you said, where I want to pour out and be like, ooh, this is what this idea, or this like vacation, or this is my dream home, or, whatever is coming up. And some days I feel depleted and I need to just do some deep breathing and just draw all my energy out or back, Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's just, and this may sound like a new way of living for some people that are listening to this on the replay, but I encourage you to, so the best way to start, I guess, and then I'll pass this to you. For me, like when I was a beginner and I started learning these things, and that my body was always telling me certain different things that, and these practices are pleasurable. I want to point that out. They actually bring pleasure, they bring clarity, they bring happiness, they bring peace, they bring release. And that's, like you were saying earlier, the non-sexual pleasure. I just simply started with some easy journaling of just like dear diary, just like 8-year-old journaling. Because it felt good.
Exactly.
And that's what I knew how to do. Like, my boyfriend and I did this today.
I usually suggest, like, when you're starting anything to reconnect with yourself, and in terms of creating a pleasure practice or a morning routine, like a reconnection to yourself practice. You can call it whatever you want. You could call it your spiritual practice or your morning routine, whatever. I usually suggest, it's the most obvious 3 things to include: something for your mind, something for your physical body, and something for your energy or spirit. For if you're not a religious person, you don't resonate with God or spirit or universe or whatever, hopefully you can connect to energy, because that's like actually a real thing. So like something for your mind, usually, because we wake up, I mean, I like to do my routine in the morning, but we've always got a bunch of crap running through our minds, a lot of negativity usually. So the mind thing for me is usually something clearing, like to get that chatter out of my mind, because you won't have a lot of resistance connecting to pleasure or feeling good or feeling even clear or neutral if you have negativity running through your mind. So usually I always suggest my clients create something that's going to get that negative chatter out of their mind, whether it's mirror work or tapping, or we talked about tapping in the last episode we did together, or journaling, something to clear the mind. And then something for your physical body. Honestly, like, I have this face oil that I have on my little meditation station, and I love massaging my face with this face oil in the morning, because my skin feels so good afterwards, and like I feel like I work those bags out from under my eyes. Like this is the kind of stuff, is non-sexual pleasure, just finding these little things that feel good and nourishing. Or I'll give my body, like I'll just like rub my body. You know, how often do we even just like feel like pressure on our limbs from ourselves? You know, how often do we do that? So it could be anything, or yoga, if you like yoga, you know, do a short yoga session or stretching or something like that for your physical body. And then something for your energy or spirit might be meditating or doing energy work if you're into that, or praying if you're into the more religious or spiritual side of it, you know, something that connects you to the energy beyond you, or the energy within you.
Yes. So since I have my daughter and I get her up and we get ready for school and then I got to get her out the door, you know, it's like not always ideal for me to do everything.
Right.
So the way I plan it, I mean, she is almost 12, so it's not like I'm dressing her and, you know, all that. So it's like I get her up and I watch her and make sure she's on task. But what I'll do as, you know, the morning goes, it's like I always will go to a very uplifting video. Like first thing, I literally open my eyes. This is my morning, and I'll tell you guys, I open my eyes, turn my alarm clock off, I pull my temperature, my thermometer out under my pillow, take my temperature, log it in my cycle tracker, and then
that's the first thing I do too.
Yes. Awesome.
Like, yes. I have to
I
keep
love
the
it.
thermometer on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to get Natural Cycles has this Aura ring.
Oh yeah.
That tracks everything for you. I'm like, oh, I'm getting that.
Awesome.
So anyways, and then it's like I instantly go to something uplifting. I love Abraham Hicks. I love Abraham. So I usually do the Abrahams, or just something like Joe Dispenza, something so positive and awesome in the morning that's going to make me think, or my favorite coach, while I'm like getting her going, you know? Yeah. And then as she's transitioning to leave, that's when I set up my space and I'll sit on the floor and I'll do some actual stretching. It feels so damn good to stretch. Like I think women are all about like HIIT and Peloton and all these, you know, like freaking stretching is phenomenal. And there is a interesting level of intimacy that you have with yourself if you do like slow, deep, intentional stretching. So that's how I do it. It's not just like, you know, it's like, no, I'm holding each stretch for like 3 minutes and I'm breathing and I'm enjoying it, right? And then I do a meditation, usually a 20-minute breath work meditation combo. And if something comes through, then I journal it out. And then I go get dressed, and then, you know, and then I move on with my day. And like you were saying earlier, like just that, okay, so with everything I said, it's like an hour, you know, more or less, but it has shifted the way I care about myself so deeply. And it really is not hard. It's just a matter of consistency.
Exactly. Exactly. And finding the things that work for you and work in your day, you know, like it doesn't have to be a long thing. It's just the intentionality and the consistency of reconnecting with yourself and tuning in and giving yourself and your body what you need to feel just that much better, you know, just that much more taken care of and more like nourished.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for enlightening us with your wisdom and this really fun conversation. Thank you everyone for being here. So why don't you share with everyone where they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So connect with me here on Instagram. This is where my party is, so to speak. I love Instagram. I love connecting with people here. So I share all of my stuff here on Instagram. I have some things in the works that I'm working on right now. One of them is a community on Facebook where I'm going to be doing a lot of free free lives and free content there. And so that's going to be specifically for women in relationships who are looking to build a more fulfilling sex life and a more deeper intimacy and connection with their partners. So keep an eye out. Connect with me on here on Instagram, and I will like let everybody know when that's up and ready to go. I've also got most of my work right now is one-on-one coaching. So my main program is called Best Sex Ever. It's a 6-month like deep dive program where we really do transformational sexual liberation work, basically, so that you can have really fulfilling sex, pleasure, and transcendental intimacy with your partner. It's the kind that just takes your sex life from completely dead, last thing on your priority list, like the missing link in your relationship being otherwise amazing, to the kind of deep intimacy that really creates that bond and connection and fulfillment with your partner in your relationship. So if you're interested in that, you can of course DM me. I offer a free call to talk more about that. But I'm also making a short self-study course that I will be releasing around the same time as I open the Facebook group. So
Wow.
Connect on Instagram. You'll know when that's up and ready to go.
You have a lot in the works. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. I'm expanding a little bit here, you know.
That's awesome. And not to like, sideswipe everything you just shared, because you guys need to go join. Like, that sounds fabulous. But you just reminded me, there's this podcast I love. It's called FML Talks. You ever listen to that?
No.
Oh my God, it's so great. You gotta check it out. So this girl, what you just said reminded me of this girl. She told this whole story about how she was feeling so unappreciated and unloved and not beautiful in the eyes of her husband. And she was just really craving intimacy and sex and like all these emotions. And she didn't know how to fulfill that. So she decided to talk her husband into becoming a swinger with her. And they went and they had all these insane experiences at swinger clubs, and she did all these things. And
it's one way to go through it.
I know, right? And at the end of the program, she realized that what she was really seeking was loving herself.
Yeah.
And that was the true intimacy she needed to find. And then once she started to find the intimacy with herself, it just naturally started coming back out between her and her husband.
Yes.
And and so when you just dropped your program, I'm like, there's so many people that need that. Like, that is huge. Yeah. So I hope that goes really good for you. And if you guys resonate with this, I will post everything in the comments. I'll post, I'll link her out, and so you guys can have easy access to Leah, and keep an eye on her page so that you can connect with her. She is a wonderful human. I love her so much. I wish we lived closer so we could actually hang out.
I know.
One day we'll have like a big meet and greet. It'll be so fun. But thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. You're amazing. So keep up the incredible work, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.